Hello, welcome. Angela Alston here with Angela Alston Astrology. And we're looking at the Astro highlights, sort of the Astro weather for the week of September 24th through September 30th. So let me share my screen and we can get into it. So before I get started, I want to invite you, if you haven't already, been over to my website, AngelaAlstonAstrology.com. I have some offerings there that I don't offer in video format, and one of them is a post on Welcome to the Libran Table. It's seasonal eating for the solar season that we're in. It offers some meal ideas, menus, food that is ruled by Venus and is particularly supportive for Librans. Also, there's a narrative therapy, creative writing exercise over on my blog, and it's Libra, remembering who balances you. Narrative therapy is a technique that I've used with myself and with my clients, and it really allows you to step into your preferred identities. So feel free to take advantage of that, all offered totally free and in loving service. Now for the planets, their planetary progress for the week. Let's get into it. The sun is in Libra, traveling from 059 to 750. The moon starts the week at 1846 Libra, ends the week at 2008 Capricorn. But the big news for the moon for the week is that it is a full moon in Aries. Mercury, who's very strong in Virgo, is traveling 1320 to 2337. Venus is in Leo, still traveling 1902 to 2347. Mars is in Libra, traveling 1803 to 2241. Jupiter is in Taurus, re-traveling 1456 to 1424 retrograde, as is Saturn. Saturn is retrograde in Pisces, re-traveling 151 to 127. Now, there's four things to talk about this week. One is the Earth trine between Mercury and Jupiter that starts the week. Venus and Mars in sextile, getting as close as they're going to get in this dance that they're doing through mid-October. A Venus-Uranus square, which is a little bit spicy. And again, the full moon in Aries. So, Earth trine with Mercury, which rules communication, thought patterns, thieves, sports, games, messages, and Jupiter ruling lawyers, wisdom. It's considered the great benefic. It really helps you understand the gifts that you've been given and your life path. Jupiter in Taurus is in fixed Earth, and that can become kind of stubborn, a little hard to budge. Sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it isn't. Mercury in Virgo is in mutable Earth, able to pivot, able to assimilate new information and act accordingly. This is an excellent time for making effective plans, for having the vision, Jupiter, and the ability to manage the details, the pragmatic, practical details, step by step to make that plan a reality. It's a great time for writing and communicating with integrity. Big ideas, important ideas. It's also a good time to start therapy. Jupiter is an advisory sort of energy. Mercury in Virgo is mentally receptive. It's also a good time for fundraising, for making the ask, learning something new and important about your life path. So all of that is on offer at the beginning of the week. But I want to say something about trines, because you hear often that trines and sextiles are positive. They are neither positive nor negative. It really matters what planets are involved, where they fall in your chart, what else is involved. It's really more about how the energy moves. A trine has a smooth flow of energy. A sextile does as well, one that is supposed to be helpful. They facilitate each other. And so it really depends, what energy is flowing between the two, to what end. They can wreak a lot of havoc. You have there's also the notion that squares are somehow, negative aspects. Oppositions are negative aspects. Well, while oppositions can be very troublesome, squares can really offer a lot of opportunity for creative readjustment, for crisis, for the friction that's needed to start a fire, make a baby, make things actually happen. So with that in mind, let's talk about the Venus applying by sextile to Mars. Now on September 26, 11:06 p.m., this aspect enters into the same degree, 20 degrees, but it never perfects by minute. This may not matter if you're not dealing with horary. But Libra and Leo energy in general, when they work together, there's a playfulness, a dynamic quality. Libra is a cardinal sign, just like Aries is. So you have cardinal air and fixed fire. Air and fire can really kind of blow each other up. And in this certain dynamic, Mars in Libra is ruled by Venus. And so we say that Mars would be receiving Venus. Venus is also the slightly faster planet. And so depending on what this is signifying, if anything, in your life, whatever is being ruled by Venus, signified by Venus, may have a slight upper hand here. And now let's talk about the Venus-Uranus square. So this perfects at 11:01 a.m. on September 29th. This is Pacific time. Venus rules the realms of fashion, taste, aesthetics, art, human relationships, particularly romantic relationships. It can also be romantic friendships, and finances. Uranus is the great awakener, the great liberator. Its impacts, when they do happen, tend to be sudden, unpredictable. You couldn't have really planned for this. And Uranus has a castrating effect, and this goes back to its origin myth, which I'm not going to get into right now. And so when you have Venus entering into a square with Uranus, sparks can fly. And let's talk about the areas where I think this is really exciting, and the areas where, the results may be mixed, and the areas where I would kind of exercise a little bit of caution, knowing that this is in the Astro weather right now. Where I think it's the most exciting is when it comes to fashion and art making. It really invites outsider art, new techniques, mediums, even new platforms, maybe even finding a new message, new audiences, pushing the boundaries, really finding your own voice, not receiving historical culture in the same way. Well, receiving it, but mixing it up, making it your own. This is a great time to push boundaries, be on the vanguard, try something new. Now, in the area of relationships, Venus Uranus has kind of a mixed reputation. It can be very exciting. This is one of those signatures of love at first sight. It can also disrupt relationships, sudden endings. However, that's not something to really have much fear around, because if the relationship is vulnerable to a sudden ending, it's probably a good thing. No relationship that is meant to be continuing, teaching you something, enriching you is going to be vulnerable to this. This is going to be the relationships that already have the cracks in them. And the bottom line is not every relationship is meant to last, right? Imagine if you were still dating the person you were dating when you were in high school or beginning of your young adult life. Relationships, you cycle through them for a purpose. People come into your life to teach you something. Maybe you're riding out a transit, at the time that they can be particularly helpful with. And so sort of on the other side of that, you hear a lot that relationships begun under, a sky like this with Venus square Uranus won't have much staying power, or if they don't have, or that there'll be highs and lows, on and off. I'm not as sold on that idea, and here's why. I see, and the way that I've seen it played out over, almost 30 years of studying astrology, is that Venus is the attractor. It brings things in. It's not the energy or the planet that really determines the longevity. Once a relationship has been seeded in your life and it kind of grows its own legs, it takes on a life of its own, longevity, it's really more a Saturnian and lunar thing. One of the things that Venus square Uranus, might introduce or invite is unusual attractions, and sometimes a little bit taboo. This is the Uranus liking to push boundaries. Now, the area where I would exercise a little caution with this in the sky is around financial moves. I would be hesitant to start any new financial schemes this week. Wait until this has passed, because the notion of money and sudden loss, it just doesn't sit well with me. And here we have a picture of Stephen King, who has this natally. Now, moving on to the full moon in Aries. This is the first full moon of autumn. It's sometimes called the harvest moon. It's at 6 degrees Aries. The Sabian symbol is a square that is partially lit, or a square brightly lighted on one side. Now the square represents materiality, boundaries, lived experience, the physical plane, our own bodies. The bright light that is referenced is spiritual insight, knowledge, kind of an otherworldly, it's the marriage of body and soul. This is a degree of that's about self-individuation, really becoming who you're meant to be in this life. And the full moon in Aries is almost it's almost like the first the curtain opening a little bit on the on the eclipses that are about to start in Aries and Libra. This is a new eclipse cycle. We're just finishing out the Taurus Scorpio eclipse cycle, the Aries Libra eclipse cycle. It's a completely different storyline. It's more about what I am here to do. What am I initiating versus relating and relationship and the knowledge that you get about yourself through others. And so this full moon in Aries might give us a little bit of insight as to what the eclipses, the areas of life at least, that the eclipses are going to be talking to us about. Finally, a little recap. Earth trine to start the week could be very, very nice, only if you really work the trine. Venus and Mars are supporting each other. Mars is still supporting Venus as she enters into this kind of exciting, very sparky relationship with Uranus. And then there's the full harvest moon in Aries at the end of the week. So please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and hop over to my website, AngelaAlstonAstrology.com, for more content. And if you have a relationship question, email me, AngelaAlstonAstrology@gmail.com. Put podcast in the subject line. Horary questions do not need time of birth. And so they can be kind of easier to ask if you don't know the time of birth about the person that you're asking. If it's a question that can really be answered by horary, I'll be very happy to offer you a free horary. That's $111 value. And you can be a part of my new podcast. That'd be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining today. I hope you have an awesome week and really make the most of the last week of September.